plotting decision trees. So there are several R packages that can help with decision tree plotting. For example, there's rpart.plot, there's partykit, and there's rattle. There's also others in addition to these, but these are kind of the three most popular ones that I'm aware of. And so you can actually find out more about packages just in general in a number of ways. And I just think this is sort of helpful to kind of give some high-level view of how, when I'm searching for some new methods or new packages, kind of how I determine if it's the package I want to use and how to actually use it. And so the ways that you can find out more about packages are via vignettes. And so vignettes are included in the package themselves, and they kind of give you a walkthrough of how the package is intended to be used. Another way to find out about R packages is through journal articles. For example, the R journal is really great for essentially, they're usually kind of extended vignettes where you see kind of how the package is intended to be used with some extra examples and things, and usually with some extra sort of background on what the purpose of the package is and who the intended audience was. The next is the RStudio community. So there's a website, community.rstudio.com, that will basically take you to a forum where you can ask questions and read other people's questions, and usually you'll see them about specific packages. Stack Overflow is also similar to RStudio community, although not quite as friendly for beginners. Stack Overflow is fabulous. It's a great community, but sometimes can be a little bit more intimidating to ask a first-time question. So if you're going to sort of search for information, Stack Overflow is fabulous. If you have a new question, I usually recommend that people go first, if it's an R question, to RStudio community. And if it really isn't answered there, then maybe check out Stack Overflow second. And most of that's because RStudio community is pretty friendly about if the question's been asked before, kind of either directing you to the answer or giving the answer again. And in Stack Overflow, there's sort of a community culture that questions really shouldn't be asked more than once. And it can be really hard, I think, as a beginner to sort of know that your question is really similar to a different question that's already been asked if the wording isn't exactly the same. So usually I say to go to RStudio community first and then Stack Overflow. And then the last place, I think this is not always intuitive to folks, but Twitter actually is a pretty good place to learn about R packages. In fact, last year when I was kind of putting together some of these lectures for the first time, I had asked on Twitter kind of what the most common plotting packages were for decision trees, and that was how I came up with the list that I came up with for today. So I think that Twitter, there's a hashtag rstats, R-S-T-A-T-S, rstats, that is really helpful for sort of if you have questions about different R things. There's kind of a whole community that sort of will just answer those as they can. So that's often what I do when I'm looking to find out more about packages. And I think hopefully kind of seeing that workflow will be helpful, because I think, when you're outside of the classroom setting, you're going to have to determine how to do a lot of this stuff a little bit more on your own. And so I think this process is really useful. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to Google partykit to find out more about it. And I want you to, so partykit is a package for doing these decision tree plots. And so just as a hint, you can use keywords such as rstats for R. RStats is like R statistics, because R is a statistical software. If you just put the letter R in, sometimes, that it can be a little bit hard to narrow down the results. And then another keyword you might use is decision tree plots, since that's what we're looking for. And so I think that this process of sort of Googling this to find out more information can be really helpful. So I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to do that. You can leave the video rolling. You don't need to spend kind of hours looking at this. But I think just to sort of get some idea for the process of how you can find more information about packages can be really helpful. Okay, so hopefully you've taken some time to kind of look through this. Before we kind of go on, I'm going to show you, so we're going to use a different tool, but I'm going to show you kind of how I would Google this because I just think that this is generally a useful skill. So if we go to Google, I would say partykit rstats decision tree plot. And so the first thing that comes up is that vignette. And so that was what I mentioned. You can get that from the package itself if you install the package, or you can just click on this link. And this will take you to a vignette that will show you a little bit about this package. And you also can see kind of more details about the package itself. This is like a blog post where someone shows how you can use it. Oh, this is my tweet from a couple years ago when I asked about if there was a clear way to visualize models for decision trees, and that was where I first learned about some of these, and so on. So here's another blog post that kind of goes through how to do this. If I had a specific question about it, I might be able to ask that as well. All right. So we're going to use rpart.plot, but feel free to try out some of the others and kind of explore them yourself. So to get this package, you need to do install.packages rpart.plot, and then library rpart.plot. And so this is how this is going to work in the context of decision trees. So for example, here I have fit a decision tree with a cost complexity of 0.1, a tree depth of 10. This is a regression tree, so the mode is equal to regression, and I've set the engine as rpart. So this is the specification, and then to fit this tree, I use that specification, and then I write out my model. So in this case, I'm using that same baseball data as last time, and I'm fitting a model to predict the salary based on a bunch of different variables here. And so what you're going to do is you're going to pull out the fit object from this model. So this is model is the output you get from the tidy models fit function. And you want to pull out the fit object by using this $sign. So you'll do model $fit, and then this round int equals false. So that model, make sure that you don't just plug in the model, but you actually plug in model $fit. If I had called my model something else, for example, if I had called this tree, then this would be tree $fit. So the $fit is going to be constant, but the first part can change depending on what you called that model output. And so this is what that is going to look like. Here's what that image looks like. And so we've got a split here. We start with 536 individuals. We have a split at whether or not their years is less than 4.5. And if it's yes, less than 4.5, then they end up in this node over here. And if it's no, that greater than 4.5, then they end up over here, which results in 66% of the data. So 34% are over here, 66 are over here. And then we have another split at hits. And so if hits is less than 118, we end up in this node. And if it's greater, then we end up in this node. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and open your last application exercise where you were working on these decision trees. And I want you to install rpart.plot, and then I want you to create a plot from your final decision tree that you fit.